everyone. Welcome to another week of Inside the Inferno. I'm Adam Noel. He's Alex Weiner. Now, Alex, I know we have a great show planned today, but how are you doing right now?
I'm pretty excited. It's my 2020 anchor debut on a show that has a lot to talk about today. So let's start things off. Let's go to Abby in the newsroom for this week's set of updates.
Thanks, guys. We'll start off the news from the Gridiron. Herm Edwards announced Tuesday that Marvin Lewis and Antonio Pierce will share defensive coordinator duties after Tony White accepted the defensive coordinator position with Syracuse. Pierce will still remain the associate head coach and recruiting coordinator for the Sun Devils. ASU tennis teams are hot this season. The number 14 ranked women's team is 6-0 on the season after sweeping UNLV at home on Sunday. Next up for them is a trip to Chicago for the ITA Indoor National Championships beginning Friday. Men's tennis came home on Saturday and dominated NAU 6-1, their largest margin of victory since a 7-0 win over Delaware last April. They also head to the Midwest this weekend, visiting number 2 Ohio State on Friday and Michigan State on Sunday. Finally, the Gym Devils pulled off an upset over number 10 Cal this Saturday. This was the gymnastics team's first win over a top 10 team since 2014. Senior Morgan Wilson was named the Pac-12 Coach's Choice of the Week after her career performance against the Bears. The team heads to Corvallis next to face number 9 LSU and number 22 Oregon State. Now let's head over to Adam with basketball.
Last Friday marked a historic first for ASU women's basketball. At home against USC, the Sun Devils went into their first ever triple overtime game in program history. In a game that featured neither team shooting above 40% from the floor, the two were locked at 51 apiece at the end of regulation. What followed was a back-and-forth affair that spanned over 3 additional periods. That was until ASU's Riley Richardson drained a game-winning 3 with 1.9 seconds left, sealing a comeback win for the Sun Devils. The victory also marked the 500th career win of Charlie Turner Thorne's head coaching career. Now let's head out to Desert Financial Reno, where our very own CJ Chayrez recapped the action.
While most were preparing for their Super Bowl watch parties, the 19th ranked Sun Devils hosted the number 8 UCLA Bruins on Sunday. ASU led by as many as 9 points early in the second quarter, but UCLA managed to make it to halftime only trailing 34-32. The Bruins wound up winning the game by 9. Head coach Charlie Turner Thorne was clearly frustrated with the way her team played.
I mean, we're just sitting there on the bench going like, what are we doing? You know, it just wasn't a normal Sun Devil effort, period.
A big third quarter is what pushed UCLA over ASU. The Bruins outscored the Sun Devils 20-10 and kept that lead for the rest of the game. ASU did just come off a triple overtime victory against USC just a few nights ago. The players, however, weren't using that as an excuse for their collapse in the second half.
I'm really trained all summer, for this, and I think it was more mental lapses that kind of bit us in the butt today. So.
The Sun Devils now head to the Pacific Northwest to take on number 10 Oregon State and number 3 Oregon next weekend. ASU has already beaten those teams previously this year. Reporting from Tempe for Inferno Intel, I'm CJ Chayrez.
And now CJ joins me at the desk. Man, thanks for coming on.
Anytime, Adam, anytime.
So CJ, looking back to that game against UCLA, Sun Devils went up 9 in that second quarter, and then they ended up losing by 9 in the second half. What was it that led to such a big collapse by the ASU?
Well, going back to that game, if you look at the stats, actually, they were all pretty even in pretty much all the categories. ASU even won the rebound battle, which is usually a good sign. Whoever wins the rebound battle usually ends up winning the game, but that just wasn't the case this time around. I think Charlie Turner Thorne said it best in her press conference. It just wasn't a normal Sun Devil effort. And in the end, I think that's kind of just what bit them in the butt.
And now ASU faces the Oregon team for a second time this season. What are you expecting to see from this series upcoming this week?
Well, ASU does have those Oregon teams' number already. They beat them both times, and they're both top 10 teams. So they've been here before. They kind of know what to expect, but unfortunately for them, so do the Oregon teams. They've lost them already. They're looking to get back. They don't want to get swept by any means in this series, and they're both, like I said, in the top 10. So I think it'll be a really hard-fought battles in both games, but in the end, hopefully they can get out with splitting that series. I think that's a really good sign for the Devils.
And then who do you consider a player to look out for on this Sun Devil team for over the next couple games?
Me personally, I'm looking out for the guard, Riley Richardson. She is actually 16 assists away from breaking the school's record for assists. So she's been balling out of her mind. In the triple overtime victory against USC, she played an unbelievable game. I believe she had a career-high 24 points. So I'm really looking out for her. hopefully she has really big games in this Oregon series. And like I said, she's only 16 assists away from being the school's all-time leader in assists. So I think she will be definitely one to look out for.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, CJ. And you can check out all his work at infernointel.com. Next up, we have ASU baseball with Alex.
ASU Baseball Media Day has passed, which means it's time for the Maroon and Gold scrimmage on February 9th. Then it's opening day on February 14th. The Sun Devils made major strides from 2018 to last season, and now the expectations are they make another leap. Baseball America has them ranked 3rd in the country, while many other sites have them scattered all around the top 10. Head coach Tracy Smith is pleased that the team is in the conversation for the national championship. It's a step forward, but the talk does not mean anything unless they win it all. That's the mood around the team, and shortstop Alika Williams went as far as saying this team feels like it will do something special this year. Led by a stout lineup including potential top MLB draft pick Spencer Torkelson, the offense could be one of the country's best, as it was last year when it scored 8 runs per game. On the mound, this is a re-energized pitching staff, helmed by a highly regarded pitching coach, Jason Kelly, and transfers Justin Fall and Tyler Thornton. The talent is there, and the players are locked in on winning the title. But the challenge will be making sure that this preseason talk turns into action. Now back to Adam at the desk with some updates on ASU football recruiting.
With the historic recruiting class already brewing in Tempe, it seems like ASU head coach Herm Edwards and his staff aren't quite finished. This week, 3-star dual-threat quarterback Dalen McLemore announced on Twitter that he is committed to play for the Sun Devils. The 6'3", 205 quarterback from San Mateo, California, is ranked as the 32nd overall pro-style quarterback from the 2020 class. And with his commitment, ASU's recruiting class now ranks 23rd nationally and 4th in the Pac-12. As a whole, the Sun Devils have 7 4-star and 12 3-star commits heading into 2020.
ASU softball struck gold out west this offseason, with 5 of their 7 recruits coming from California, 1 from Arizona, and 1 from Texas. The recruits helped build an offseason performance that placed the Sun Devils 14th in the recruitment rankings. They also support head coach Trisha Ford's needs heading into this season and in the future. With some departures from last year, the Sun Devils are expecting to start a pair of freshmen on the team's opening day lineup, including Alina Torres at shortstop and Jasmine Hill in right field. If all falls well in Tempe, the Sun Devils could dance to the College World Series again this season, and in upcoming seasons as well.
Now to ASU wrestling as we bring in Inferno Intel wrestling reporter Henry Schleizer to talk about the team. Henry, thanks for coming on.
Adam, thanks for having me.
So, who needs to step up for this ASU team now that some pressure has been taken off those middle and heavyweights?
Well, you see, Adam, it's the lightweights. It's Josh Maruka and Josh Kramer. Those are the 2 guys who have to step up for this team. This team is very deep, they're loaded, and they've performed well all year, except for the guys at those lighter weights at 133 and 141. If this team wants to make a run at a national championship, those are the 2 guys who need to step up.
And it was the final run for Zahid Valencia in Maroon and Gold. How do you think he did in his final time in Tempe?
Well, he's undefeated, Adam, and he finished the season strong. He picked up another win. He stayed undefeated at home these past 2 years. He's undefeated in general. And he set himself up nicely for another run at a Pac-12 championship and another national championship.
And looking forward, how far do you see this team going in the Pac-12 tournament this year?
Like I said, I think if Josh Maruka and Josh Kramer can pick up and start pulling their weight, I think this team has a real shot at winning a national championship. However, realistically, I think this team has a better shot at finishing in the top 5 at 3rd or 4th.
And a big year for ASU wrestling, but that's all the time we have for Henry. Thanks for coming on. And you can check out all his work at infernointel.com. Next up, we have ASU basketball with Ray Belkora.
ASU basketball split the weekend in Washington last week. Much like their entire season, it was inconsistent. Against Washington State, ASU beat themselves more than the Cougars beat the Sun Devils. With over 20 turnovers and shooting just 8 of 15 at the foul line, Bobby Hurley's team gave Washington State countless opportunities to pick up a win over a more talented Sun Devil squad. With 5 seconds left, CJ Elabai did just that, launching a go-ahead three-pointer that would doom the Sun Devils. However, in the second game of the trip in Seattle, ASU played a much more complete game. The Sun Devils shot 27 for 33 from the free throw line. Ramella White, just a 66% free throw shooter, was 8 of 8. ASU controlled much of the second half, although a late push from Washington brought the score closer than it needed to be. Coming off that 87-83 win and now an even 4-4 in Pac-12 play, ASU has a key home set this weekend. The Sun Devils must take care of business against UCLA before a big matchup with USC on Saturday that could go a long way towards determining if Hurley can lead ASU to a 3rd straight NCAA tournament berth. It appears likely that 11 or maybe even 12 conference wins will be necessary to dance in March. That means ASU can only lose 2 or 3 games before the conference tournament in Las Vegas. Fortunately, the hardest part of the schedule is in the rearview mirror. 6 of the final 10 are at Desert Financial Arena, and the only road trips, Bay Area and Los Angeles, appear manageable. The margin for error is slim, but there is a reasonable path, and it starts with handling business at home.
Welcome into Headlines, where we take our favorite ASU-related headlines of the week. We bring them to you. So, Adam, let's go first.
Well, Alex, I'm going to go with one that I saw earlier this week on Twitter, and it comes from Sun Devil Football, as the program congratulated former ASU linebacker Terrell Suggs on winning his second Super Bowl ring this past Sunday. Suggs and the Chiefs obviously beat the San Francisco 49ers 31-20, and with the linebacker adding 2 tackles in the championship game, so he was involved on it, and it will accompany the ring that he previously won with the 2013 Baltimore Ravens,
That's
a
right.
team I know you're familiar with, Alex.
A little familiar with that team, absolutely. No, this is it's great to see one of the legends kind of find their way onto a team, especially because he was on the Cardinals for the most of the season. And by the end of it, they kind of wanted to go with the youth movement, let him go to a contender. The Chiefs jumped on him on the waiver wire, and it all worked out for him. He didn't get to play a ton with them, but enough, and he got the ring that he wanted.
No, absolutely. Like you mentioned, he was in Arizona. He was happy to be back home. He got to come back to Arizona for a little bit, but it was really a good decision. I think him leaving and him joining a Super Bowl contending team like the Chiefs, and lo and behold, he got a second ring. So,
Absolutely.
Alex, what are you going to pick this week?
I'm going to stick with football, and this was mentioned earlier in the show, but this was pretty big news. Defensive coordinator for Arizona State, eventually, it was Danny Gonzalez last year. He moved to take a head coaching job. Then it was Tony White when he went over to Syracuse. So, in their absence, Antonio Pierce and Marvin Lewis are going to be co-defensive coordinators. That is former Super Bowl champion Antonio Pierce and former Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator Marvin Lewis, which is pretty crazy to think about. As you mentioned, the Ravens. Marvin Lewis was the defensive coordinator of the Ravens when they won in 2000, one of the greatest statistical defenses in the NFL. So, I mean, that's just kind of wild to think that he's going to be with a pitchfork on his polo on the sidelines for ASU.
No, absolutely. You look at Marvin Lewis this past season, he was a special advisor for Herm Edwards. He had a lot of input on the team throughout the year, but now that he's going to be on the sidelines, a direct position along with Pierce, it's going to be a good thing, I think, for him, especially if he wants to get back into the game of football, either at the collegiate level or the professional level. But I think a thing that a lot of ASU football fans are kind of confused about is why Tony White left. But I think the decision to move from one university to another, but the same defensive coordinator job, was I saw that Tony White, he left because he wanted to be closer to his mom, and moving to Syracuse it provided him an opportunity to be closer to his family. So I think, although it's sad to see him leave, especially with him being the new coordinator this upcoming year, it was something that he did on a personal level instead of something that was financially or anything like that.
He didn't get outbid by Syracuse in a way.
Exactly, I'd have to say that. So I think that'll do it for today's headlines. Thanks for joining us, and for Alex Weiner, I'm Adam Noel.
Thanks, guys. Former Sun Devil John Rahm was back in the Valley for the 82nd edition of the Waste Management Phoenix Open last weekend. The current world number 3 ended the tournament tied for 9th, finishing 11 under par. He will look to overtake the world number 1 spot over current number 1 Brooks Koepka and number 2 Rory McIlroy when they all tee off at the Genesis Invitational in Pacific Palisades next week.
Well, that'll do it for today's show. Big thanks to everyone who came on today, and you can check out all their work at infernointel.com.
Be sure to follow us also on Twitter at InfernoIntel. Thanks for watching.